I'm back to report on how it went with my mastectomy tattoo. I had my tattoo just over a week ago and I traveled a couple hours away to get it. I've been looking for a couple years almost for just the right tattoo artist, and one of the first ones that I found was the one that I ended up going with. So I guess I would say just follow your gut when you see the work of someone that you really love, and I recommend using Instagram to follow them for a long period of time and get to know the breadth of their work, because yeah, it was really important to me to not just go to someone that could do fine line tattooing or someone that just did color or just did black ink, someone that isn't limited to some of the, I don't know, genres or techniques that different tattoo artists specialize in these days, because I wanted to have the flexibility to change my mind at the last minute if I didn't like something. And it turns out I probably will change my mind and get a revision and make it a little bit darker than I started out with. Probably. I don't know yet, because it's a couple weeks, 3 weeks until I have to go back and decide on how I'm going to embellish or darken or accent or shade my my rough tattoo design that I have right now. So I just wanted to talk a little bit from the perspective of someone who has never had a tattoo before and probably would never have had one if it wasn't for the mastectomy scars and wanting to beautify them. So it's a little bit different maybe than having a decorative tattoo just for fun. And some of my questions are having to do with general tattooing and others have to do with the scars. So I'll talk about both of those kinds of questions in this video. And I'll have a follow-up video to show you my final product and what I ended up with and whether I'm happy with it or whether I wish I would have stuck with what I have now. So some of my questions going in for myself were how dark do I want this to be, and how filled in, how heavy do I want it to be. I have quite a few friends who have mastectomy tattoos that are very dark and very colorful and 100% filled in with either color or black or gray. And so I've had the luxury of seeing what that looks like on a chest. I've seen hundreds of photographs on Instagram, and I've seen probably 100 people in real life, because I went to International Flat Day where most of the flatties that showed up and crossed the Golden Gate Bridge had tattoos. I don't know if most of them, about half of them probably. So I've gotten to see a lot of mastectomy tattoos, and I decided that what I liked best was kind of a sprawling design. I really like the kind that go straight across, and I like the ones that kind of mimic the shape of a bra, just because when you first see someone with a tattoo that is shaped like a bra, it looks like they have like a bikini on or something on that you kind of get drawn to, and it's not as threatening. But what I decided in the end was my favorite ones were crossbody diagonal designs. And I really like the looser ones, so the less dense designs. I ended up going with an artist that really specializes in more dense designs, and that's, I guess, what I ended up with was a little bit more dense than what I wanted, I think, but I value her artistry and her skill more than I value the looseness of the design. And what I mean by looseness is less lines per inch or per square foot, I guess, so less ink, so more of a flowy and light design. And I learned that just from looking at photos. So I really recommend, the best thing you can do is to look at photos and just see what you really love. My favorite tattoo artist in the world is, I don't know if this is the right pronunciation of her name, but she's on Instagram. She's in France. And I can't read the words that go with her posts because I've taken French, but it's not that. I haven't learned enough to read it very well. So her name is Marie Minute, or Minute, and I will put the tagline of where to find her down in the show notes of this video. And then the gal locally here that's in my same state but is a couple hours away from me is Alice Blanchet. or Blanche. I don't know how to say her last name either, actually. It sounds kind of French too, actually. But I'll put her her tagline, how to find her on Instagram, down below as well. And Marie Minute in France, she actually uses plant material to design her tattoos. So she puts plants, dried or fresh, into ink and then puts that plant on your body and then tattoos in that design. So it's very, very organic, very botanically true to nature, and extremely true to size and form and everything. And it really strikes you as being so. Like when you see the tattoo, it really looks like, you know, that plant. And I love that. But she, even if I could go to her, and I could because I am going to France this year, but she only does black or gray ink, and I definitely wanted, beyond everything, I definitely wanted color rather than black. I didn't want any black in my tattoo design. So yeah, it's a compromise. You're not ever going to find like the perfect combination, probably. I mean, especially if you're as picky as I am. Combination of features, so there's some compromise. But I definitely wanted a botanical design. At first I wanted a vine, and I was pretty settled on that for like over a year. And then when my mom died last month, almost a month ago, I kind of had this last minute shift, and I wanted to portray a plant that both me and my mom loved or shared a memory of. And so I really shifted in my design a lot. And because of it being so last minute, it wasn't very well planned out. And thankfully Alice was willing to shift with me very last minute. She hadn't written up my design yet the way I asked for the vine. So this is still somewhat of a vine, but the vine itself is kind of hidden under the leaves and flowers. And I guess in retrospect, I would probably make it a little bit looser and less dense if I could go back. But I really like it. The problem for me is now that it's very dense, it's also very light colored. It's half red and half brown. And it's a lighter, not lighter, but it's a medium red-brown. And so when you're standing a couple of yards away or more, it's harder to decipher the lines, the outlines of the flowers, and where the flowers and the leaves separate or differentiate. And so I still feel very strongly that I don't want a really dark design, but one of the unwanted side effects of having a lighter ink color is that you kind of have to differentiate where one object starts and stops and the next one starts and stops. And so I learned that kind of as I was going. And so there's a reason they use dark ink in tattooing, and it really makes it easier to read the design from a little bit further away, is what I've learned. And I think there are ways to correct that. Part of what my plan is to do a little bit different color and to do a little bit darker ink in my revision and accentuate the center of the flowers and then the edges of the leaves is what I'm thinking. Anyway, one of the things I really liked about Alice is that she mixes her own colors. So she gives me not only an original design, so it's not like the classic tattoo parlor where you're looking through this album full of designs that somebody else down the street already got. She designed it special for me, and it's original and unique, but also the color is original and unique, and I helped her choose the color and blend the color, and I was doing that there with her in person. And I really like that. I was going for kind of a henna color, but I also wanted a little bit of red in it. So it's a red tinted brown, and we added a little bit of white in, which I didn't realize was possible, just to lighten it, and I like that. It looks kind of like a henna tattoo, which I like. It's much more gentle on the eye, but because it's somewhat red, it also, at first glance, could appear to be a wound or an abrasion, you know, if you didn't look very closely or if you were looking from many yards away. So I didn't anticipate that element. And I think because of that, I'm going to add more brown in and make it less red overall. So it still could look like a wound because, you know, wounds can look red and brown at the same time. But I'm willing to sacrifice that possibility for just the value of having it look more like a natural henna tattoo. One thing I was surprised about was her willingness to redesign at the last minute. And I think me being kind of a rigid, planful person, I wasn't expecting her to be that flexible. And I did ask her to change the leaves. I didn't like how they were really dense and kind of crushed in right next to the roses. And so I wanted them to be looser and a little bit more space between them, and also a little bit longer. And so she completely took out the leaves, and I can show you a little video of how she did that. She was working on an iPad, and she just kind of circled a line around her current leaves that she had designed, and took that and pulled it aside and drew on new leaves and leaf branches and made them just a little bit more spacious and flowy, and it felt like it was less of a blob or like a square or a rectangle shaped design, and it felt much more organic to me in the end because she did do that. And it really only took her a couple minutes to do that, and I was pretty shocked how easy and how quick it was for her to change it. So I guess I wish I would have known going in that it was very possible to completely redesign the tattoo if I wanted to. And I might have done that if I had had that expectation going in. So one thing I can help you with ahead of time, if you're planning on getting this kind of tattoo or your first tattoo in any case, is just the ease of which, you know, the tattoo artist can really totally redo everything if you want them to. And how important it is that you ask for that, because this is your body after all, and you're stuck with it for the rest of your life. So I think they realize how crucial that is, that you get it just right and the way that you want it. And a friend of mine did tell me that the night before I went in. So I did have more courage to ask for more redesign than I would have, I think, if my friend hadn't reminded me of that. But I think it's really important that I remind you of that too, and that that's the main thing you have in mind going in, because you don't want to compromise too much and do something just to save them time or to save you money, when really it doesn't take that much time to do a redesign. I can show you the before and after actually of how she designed it the first time, the one she sent to me on email a few days before my tattoo session, and how we kind of loosened it up and made the leaves longer and just more flowing and less kind of stuffed into the space. I think she probably went in assuming that I wanted something like that bikini style, where it was really just covering a triangular part of my breast, and that would be nice, and I do like that design. I have seen that quite a bit, but what I like even more is something organic and natural and flowing, and like I said, something more kind of stretching diagonally. And originally I thought I would cover my second side. This side is too fresh because I just had surgery about 9 months ago on this side, so I can't tattoo it yet because the scars aren't healed enough. You really should wait at least a year, and more on the side of 2 years really, to be safe for your scars to get healed sufficiently before you tattoo them or even around them. So I was picturing doing kind of an over the shoulder to under the breast, kind of almost like a swag or banner in terms of where it went on me. But now that I've played around and moved floral or botanical designs over a picture of myself, just using that kind of simple trick where you can take a piece of your photo and put it onto another photo. I've kind of messed around, and I realized that I don't really want to tattoo down here. Plus, it's really painful to tattoo over your ribs. I learned that was one of the most painful spots on me so far. And so I don't think I will do that. I might change my mind back, but I think the part of my Goldilocks mastectomy, if I do cover it at all, the part that I'd want to cover is a little bit higher and not as low, even though my scar is more down here. I have kind of a concave area up here, and it appears to be a little bit shadowed when I'm in the sun. And I think I'd like to cover that shadow a little bit more, if anything. But I kind of have a feeling that I won't do a whole lot more tattooing on my body after this. I really just wanted to cover my flat side, my really concave side, and beautify those really gnarly scars that I have over here under my arm. I had some really thick and almost braided looking scars. They've flattened out now, but they are very wide compared to most mastectomy scars, and some parts of them are still pigmented, more pinkish. And so that was the area that I wanted to kind of camouflage. And I feel like Alice did an amazing job of that, even though she had never done mastectomy scars before. She said that she had done self-harm scars before. A lot of people get their self-harm scars tattooed over, which makes sense, on their arms. But she hadn't done mastectomy scars before, so that was her first time doing that. But she really did a great job of covering it. And, you know, most people who look into tattoo art these days and how it's done very differently than it was back in the 70s and 80s when I first was, you know, exposed to the idea of a tattoo and tattoo parlors. They use something like carbon paper now, and they put their design through a printer and have a carbon copy of just the ink part, and then they put that onto your chest with a lot of Vaseline, and the carbon comes off on your chest or your skin, and they use that carbon ink, I guess, or powdered, whatever the pigment is on the carbon, as the guide for tattooing. So that's something that they can wash off if it doesn't look right, and reposition if they need to. It's really easy to reprint it, and you can make many trials and errors if you need to. But she didn't have to for me. She just did one. Another thing that I wish that I would have thought a little bit more about, and just happens that it turned out really well, is the idea of like my thinnest spaghetti strap tank top and how my tattoo would appear underneath something like that. It turns out that it was designed perfectly to be very well hidden underneath my thinnest spaghetti strap tank top, or even my thinnest spaghetti strap bra. And there's just a tiny bit of ink that peeks out up above and down below the bra that is like a sports bra that I would wear out at the gym or something. And I like that. I like that there's a tiny bit of ink and no more. But I kind of also like the idea that there would be a full leaf or a full flower that is showing. So I can't decide whether I would want like a full thing, a full object, whether it's a leaf or a flower or a bud or something like that, peeking out from my typical tank top. And there's not really a typical tank top. Unfortunately, you have all kinds of different tank tops usually in your closet. But I was thinking it would be fun to have it go in the direction of showing, maybe, and show just something delicate, but not half of something, but a full something. And so that's something that I've been thinking about too, is like, what is my most typical, most bare outfit, and what would be fun, and where would it be fun to have something peeking out, either down below or up above. And I haven't answered that question yet, but I feel like it's really, the default mode is really safe to just have it all hidden underneath your typical bra or tank top. And that's where I'm at now. And I think it's fun to have it in a place where you can also just pull your clothes aside and give a little peek if you want to show a friend. This this armhole is not very stretchy, so I can't really do that right now, but most of the tank tops that I wear are more stretchy. So it's good to think about that in advance too. Do you want a little bit of ink showing? Do you want a full flower or a full leaf showing? Do you want something that provokes curiosity on the part of others, or do you want it to be more private and hidden? That's something I didn't give a lot of thought to, but I kind of am glad that I didn't make any errors in that department. So I've kind of played it safe so far, but I have, like I said, a couple weeks to think about whether I do want that element or not. I think the main two styles that are really popular right now are fine line or line art. So you have just one color, whether it's black or green or brown or red, and you do the whole design in that one color. And then the other most common type of design is to have a very dark black outline and to fill that in kind of like a coloring book. Fill it in with different colors, and they can also do white nowadays. So you can even create like a big contrast with darker colors and white. I also like the idea that over the years it would fade really well. Things with outlines tend to fade in a really obvious way, and I think things that are colored in completely also fade poorly, whereas if you had like a monotone in a color like brown or red especially, I've seen tattoos that are like 10 or 20 years old and they fade really beautifully. They almost look more like a watercolor effect. And so I'm also trying to think long term, and of course you can go back and get your tattoo re-inked, but I'm thinking I would probably prefer not to do that, or to do that less often than, every 10 years. So the only other thing I want to say is how to prepare for the tattoo on the day of. And thankfully I've had good friends that have had this done very recently and have schooled me in what to do to make it less painful. And I'm so grateful for their advice. So the best piece of advice that I got was that I need to use lidocaine gel. And I thought I needed a prescription for it because I got a prescription prior to mastectomy for something called EMLA cream, which is a lidocaine cream. So I asked my doctor to prescribe that to me. And when I went to Walgreens to get the prescription, the pharmacist actually told me that they had a stronger strength lidocaine gel on the shelf at Walgreens. It was 4%, where the one my doctor prescribed was 3%. And it was cheaper. So she just sold me the one off the shelf. And so that's what I recommend that you do. I would recommend, if you're getting a large tattoo, to go ahead and just get 2 tubes of it. It's really cheap. Can't remember, it was like $4 or something like that. And I'll show you the picture of it here. I used half of a tube just prior to leaving for my tattoo appointment and just caked it on really thick, just like, patted it on and left it on really, really thick, like, at least 1 millimeter or 2 of thickness on top of my skin. And then I saran wrapped myself with, what I had was press and seal. I didn't have any saran wrap. I had my mom's press and seal that she didn't want because she didn't like it. It's kind of like a saran wrap, but it sticks a lot better, and I recommend it because it does stick. So it sticks to your skin wherever you don't have the lidocaine gel, and it sticks to itself really well. So I just wrapped it all the way around my torso, under my arms, all the way down to my belly. And I put a couple shirts on over it, and it was crackly and crinkly and a little awkward, but I was really, really numb when I got there, and I'm really happy that I did that. The places that I didn't do as good of a job covering, like down in my lower rib area or mid-rib area and then under my arm, were not as numb, and I could really feel it was really painful in those spots. If you can arrange to not go while you're on your period, you tend to be a little bit more a lower threshold for pain when you're on your period. And I, of course, coincidentally, I'm in transition to menopause, and I happen to have a flash period unexpectedly that week, and so that was a little horrifying, but that reminded me to tell others to make sure and schedule it on a time that you're not going to be menstruating, because you do have more of a pain reaction during that time of the month. And then it was really nice that my husband drove me and drove me back, especially. To not have to drive home was nice, and that was a piece of advice that I got from a friend that would not have occurred to me. I was actually planning on going all by myself until she told me that. And afterwards, I decided to have my husband drive, and I think I would be fine driving, especially like when I go back. I might drive myself home. I think she put some lidocaine on afterward as well. And so it's manageable. Like, I would have been able to do it, and I might do it next time because there'll be a little bit less area covered next time, I think. But yeah, it was really nice for the first time that you go. My session was about an hour and a half long of tattooing, and I was in there for a little over 2 hours total. And she said after about an hour and a half, she does like to stop because it just gets really stressful and fatiguing for her and for the client. So I agreed. I said, yeah, I've had a little bit too much stimulation and pain. It wasn't super painful in most spots. It was very slightly painful, I would say, on the spots that I had the lidocaine gel applied. So those are my most essential tips. And of course that applies to any tattoo, not just a mastectomy tattoo. In terms of pain, I didn't have any extraordinary pain. I didn't have really any pain at all. It was definitely sensitive to the touch for the first week, but after that it's not even sensitive to the touch. I had some numbness already. I had some nerve damage already, so I think probably it would have been a lot more painful on this side where I had the nerve preserving mastectomy. This side is a lot more numb, so that probably helped too in terms of pain and pain tolerance. So let me know if you have any questions. I'll do a follow-up video, so it'd be nice to know if you have questions that I can clarify or cover in the next video. I'm also planning on starting a podcast this spring, so stay tuned for details about that. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.